Hi, in this tutorial we're going to make a scrapbook page similar to this one. The year 2020 was a pretty hard year for a lot of people, so most of us are glad that it's gone. Hopefully 2021 will be a much happier and healthier year than 2020 was. So let's start with a new document. I have one open already. And first I'm going to bring in that banner. So let's come over here to the graphics tab. Pick graphics from the pull down menu, and I want to use this banner. So let's pull that in. I'm going to resize that. I'm just going to pull these squares in the center on the side, just pull them over to enlarge this. Okay, I think that's good. Let's move it up just a little bit, about right there, and I'm going to hit the check mark. Okay, now I want to get rid of these stars and the white type in here because I want to put Happy New Year up here in the banner. You can see there's a little bit of a vignette. This is a little darker here than it is right there. So I'm going to actually fill that with a vignette. So I'm going to get to the gradient tool. I need to get these colors in there. So let's double click on the foreground color. As I move my cursor over into the artwork, it turns into an eyedropper. So I can just click on that color up there, and that's now our new foreground color. This is the background color. Let's just make sure. I think it's still the same from when I was doing my example previously. Just get that color right there. Yep, it looks like it was already there. It was the same. Now we need to make a selection. So let's get the marquee tool. We'll just draw a rectangle right up here. We'll cover up those stars and that white type. Make sure you don't go outside of the banner. And right there. Now I want to hide those marching ants because it'll be a little bit easier to see when we put the gradient in there. So to hide those marching ants, just hit Command H on a Mac or Control H on a PC, and they'll be hidden. They're still there. The selection's still made. In fact, you can hit Command H or Control H to get them back, and you can just toggle them on and off just like that. So let's just hide them right now. Okay, so let's get the gradient tool. Let's make a new layer, and we're going to put this gradient on this new layer. It looks like the transition is very small, about here. Hold down the shift and it'll go straight to there. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to leave it like that. Now let's put some type in there. Get the type tool, click right here, and let's type Happy New Year. Okay, now we need to make that a lot smaller, so triple click in that type, and we'll come down here. If you just bring your cursor down over the word size, it turns into a hand with an arrow going to the left and an arrow going to the right. If you just click and drag on that word size, it'll bring your type down. Drag to the left, it makes it smaller. Drag to the right, it'll make it bigger. Let's just go about like that. Let's change the color of that type while we're here. Click on this swatch and we'll just pick white. And now come up and hit the check mark. And we've got the move tool, so let's just move that into position. About right there. Now I want to put a little stroke on that, so let's come up under Layer, Layer Style, Style Settings. We'll click on Stroke. We'll give it a little bit of a stroke, maybe about a 10, and black, that's fine. Let's click OK. Now I need to bring in my years. Let's get the Type tool. Click right here and we'll type 2020. Now my type's white because I had white for that type. So let's select all that type. Come down here. We're going to make that a silver or a gray color. And I want to make that a little bit bigger. So I'll just hover over the word size and I'll drag this time to the right to make that a little bit bigger. Something like that. Click the check mark. I want to rotate that just a little bit. So if I move my cursor up here to the corner, see if I can rotate that. Okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Let's hit the cancel button. Let's just click up there. That opens up these options down here. We got rotate selected. Let's just use this little dial. If we just grab that little line in that dial and spin it around, that will rotate our type. Okay, click the check mark. Okay, let's slide that up just a little bit. Now I want to duplicate this layer because it's easier to just duplicate it and change that to 2021 than it is to retype it and do the whole thing over again. So let's just duplicate it. Make sure the 2020 layer is selected. Hit Command J or Control J if you're on a PC, and that will duplicate that layer. Let's just move that down just a little bit so we can see it. And we'll get the type tool. We'll change that to 2021. Then we'll select all of that type because I want to make that a gold color. So come down here to your swatch. Let's find a gold color. That one right there. Okay, hit the check mark. I want to rotate that back just a little bit. It's too far. So let's come down here and yep, that didn't work again. So let's come up here and we'll just do the same thing. We'll just click right there. And that will get our options down here. We'll just rotate this back a little bit. Yeah, something like that. Click OK. Okay, now I want to put a red line across 2020. I'm going to come down to 2020, select that layer. I'm going to come over here to the shapes. Right now I have a star. I'm going to come down here and select the line tool. When I draw this, it'll automatically create a new layer right above the 2020 layer. But I want to make this red, so let's click on the color, select this red color, and I'm going to make it 20 pixels. That should be fine. I'm going to just draw this line right across the word 2020. We're going to get rid of that year. It brought that layer in right above the 2020. Okay, let's bring in some pictures. Let's come down here to the photo bin. Let's bring in this picture. I'm going to just grab the move tool and slide that over about right there. Then I'm going to bring in another picture and we'll slide it up. Now I want this picture to be on top of the other picture because we don't need to see the back of her head. Let's just move this layer above that layer. To do that, click and hold down the mouse button and just drag that layer up, and when you see that line between the family fun layer and the big stock adults layer, drop it. Now that layer is on top of this layer. Okay, that looks good. I like that. Let's bring in a ribbon down here at the bottom. Back over to the graphics panel, and we'll just scroll down here and we'll grab this ribbon. Okay, now I want to make that bigger. So I'm going to just drag out these side handles again like we did with the banner. Now I don't want those staples in there, so I'm going to continue to drag, make that bigger. These are like staples. That flattened that ribbon out quite a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull this down to make it a little bit wider, and that'll bring some of those ripples back. Okay, something like that. Now I want to make that the same color as the banner up here. I'm going to use an adjustment layer to change the color of that ribbon. So with this rickrack layer selected, we've got to click the check mark first. Come up under this little icon right here is your adjustment layers. Click that and select Hue Saturation. If I'd move this right now, it's going to affect everything below that layer, and it's on the top, so it'll affect everything. So I want to clip that to the rickrack layer. To clip it, just hold down the Option on a Mac or the Alt on a PC and move your cursor right in between those two layers, and it turns into a square with an arrow pointing down. Click right there, and now this adjustment layer will only affect the rickrack layer. So let's go back to our Hue Saturation. Let's just move this slider over until we find the right color. That's about it right there. And I'm going to just close that down now. Let's bring in a background. Let's come up to the graphics, backgrounds. I used this background. Let's bring that in. You can use any background you want. It's such a busy background that you kind of lose some of these elements. So I want to put some layer styles on some of these other elements. Let's start with the pictures. Click on the picture layer. Go up under layer, layer style, style settings. Let's give this a white stroke. Click on stroke. Let's make it about 13. Click on this swatch. We're going to change that to white. Just drag right up there in that corner and that'll be white. Click OK. Now let's put a little drop shadow on there because our ribbon has a little bit of a drop shadow, so we want that to match. So let's turn this dial. This will be the light coming from the upper left. Click on drop shadow. The distance determines the distance from the object, so the distance from the picture itself. That's probably about the right size. Now if we change size, that changes the hardness or the softness of it. So if we drag this to the right, it just softens that shadow just a little bit. And this shadow is just a little bit darker than this shadow. So let's just change the opacity. We'll just darken that up a little bit, pulling that slider to the right. That darkens it up. And click OK. Rather than make that layer style every time for all these other layers, I'm just going to copy this layer style. Just hold down the Option or the Alt if you're on a PC and click on that FX and drag it up to the other layer. And now we have that same layer style on that layer. Let's use that same layer style on our banner. So let's just click and drag that up to the banner. And there we go. I am going to put that same style on our years, but I'm going to modify it just a little bit. Let's put it on the years first. Let's Option or Alt and click on that FX and bring it up to the year 2020. I'm going to double click on the FX. That'll open up our layer styles box. I'm going to give this a bevel so that it looks a little bit more 3D, like an embossed effect. Let's just click on the bevel and I'll just drag this to the right just a little bit, something like that. I like that. Click OK. Now let's copy that up to the year 2021. Option or Alt, click and drag and let it go, and there we go. Now there's space down here. You can do some journaling or add some other things if you want. Be kind of hard to see that type in there, so let's make a little box. Come up here and click on the marquee tool. Let's come right to the top and we'll make a new layer. Okay, let's click about right here and drag. We'll kind of line it up with the edge of that other picture. Actually, that other picture is a little bit off, isn't it? Let's go a little bit wider and we'll let go. Now we want to fill that with white. Hit Shift and Delete or Shift and Backspace if you're on a PC, and that brings up the fill layer dialog box. Let's pick white and click OK. Now we'll just change the opacity. Come up here and click on this arrow and we'll just move this slider down to about 60%. And I think that'll be good. Now you can journal in there. Let's deselect that. Now I want to move this picture over just a little bit because we have a bigger margin here than we have over here. I want to equal that out just a little bit. So let's go ahead and click on this picture layer with the Move tool. Just use the arrow keys. If you click once, it moves it 1 pixel. If you hold down the Shift and click, it moves it 10 pixels. Let's just slide that over just a little bit. Let's go ahead and slide this other one over too. Click on that layer and just use the arrow keys and we'll just nudge it over just slightly, about like that. Okay, I think that looks a little bit better. Okay, let's make another box down here just like we did this one. Come up here, select that layer and then click on a new layer. Let's come over and get the marquee tool. We'll line it up with the left edge of that picture and the right edge of the picture and our other box. Hit Shift Delete or Shift Backspace. Let's fill that with white. And we'll do the same thing. We'll take the opacity down to about 60. Okay, perfect. Let's deselect that. Let's grab the shape tool. I used the star. The star has 8 sides. It has a large indent, 90%. So let's click and just drag and make that star. Now I want that star to be a yellow color, so let's click on the swatch Let's find a real pale yellow. I like this one. Now it's yellow. We got our star. Let me show you something with these filters. I'm going to use a filter. Bring that down here in the middle. Come up under Filter, Distort, Twirl. The shape needs to be rasterized before proceeding. Okay. Now if you use this twirl, you can see a preview of what it's going to look like here. Let's just make that about 25% so we can see the whole thing. See how it twirls around? You can change this number using the slider to twirl it more or twirl it less. Or if you go to the left, you can twirl it the other direction. You can see that it's twirling right from the middle because this is in the middle of our artwork. If you like that, you can use that. Let's just click OK so you can see what it looks like. That looks kind of nice. If you like that, you can use that. I did mine a little bit different. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to move this over to the side. Okay, so let's come up under Filter, Distort, Twirl. We're going to rasterize it again. That's fine. Let's change the view to 25% so that we can see what we're doing. And you can see, let's move that a little bit. You can see how it distorts it differently than it did that last one. Let's just go about like that and click OK. That's pretty crazy, huh? Let's move that over here into position. I'm going to put it over here. Let's make it a little bit smaller. That came in pretty big. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's rotate it just a little bit. Okay, I kind of like that. Let's go with that. Now, click the check mark. I want to make it look like this part is behind the picture and these things are coming up in front of the picture. I'm going to use a layer mask for that. With this layer selected, click the layer mask. That adds a layer mask to our layer. Let's zoom in a little bit. Command and the plus or Control and the plus. Then use the hand tool. Just hold down the space bar, you get the hand tool. Let's move into position over here. With our layer mask selected, make sure that it's selected. It has that blue line around it. So we're going to be working with the layer mask. Come over and click on this rectangular marquee. Okay, just come right to the edge of that white border. Click and we'll drag our marquee. Drag our rectangle. Come over to the edge of that white border and we'll fill that with black. Shift delete or shift backspace. Bring up the fill layer. We'll fill it with black. And now it looks like that's behind. I don't like that little nub sticking out there, so I'm going to get rid of that. I need to deselect the selection first, so Command D to deselect it. And then I can just paint that out. Just like that. Let's zoom out. Command 0 will fit it in the window. Let's duplicate that one. So let's just come up here and make sure our layer is selected and hit Command J or Control J if you're on a PC. That duplicates it. Get the move tool. Let's move it down here a little bit. Let's rotate it. We're going to rotate that quite a bit. And I think we're going to make it a little bit smaller. Something like that. Let's bring it down here. I don't like that going right over that girl's face. So let's distort it a little bit by pulling this out. I kind of like that. Let's hit the check mark. Now you can see our layer mask didn't fit this one. So let's go back to the layer mask. For this layer, let's zoom in. Command and the plus sign or Control and the plus sign. Let's do the same thing with this one. Hold down the space bar to get the hand. Let's grab the marquee tool. Let's go right to the edge of that white border and drag out and fill that with black. Shift delete or shift backspace, fill that with black. Command 0 or Control 0 to fit in the window, and we're done. So try this on your own. We used quite a few techniques on this scrapbook page. We used the layer masks and we used adjustment layers and we used the layer styles and we copied things. And hey, you can have a lot of fun. Just Make it your own. Use different backgrounds. Use your own pictures, of course. Try and make these little shapes. Play around with it. You can have a lot of fun. If you learned anything in this tutorial, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll be making a lot more of these tutorials in the future. Thanks for joining me in this one, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.